Sometimes the person everyone knows feels strangely distant, while the quiet one inside keeps waiting. Many people spend years trying to become someone they believe others will finally accept. They work harder, smile more often, stay quieter, achieve more, or hide parts of themselves. Yet an unshakable feeling remains that something inside still does not belong. From the outside, this struggle is often misunderstood. People may say you lack confidence, that you are indecisive, too sensitive, or simply overthinking life. Others may encourage you to just be yourself, as though discovering your true self were as effortless as making a simple decision. When those words fail to help, it becomes easy to assume the problem is your character rather than your circumstances. Yet psychology offers a gentler interpretation. What often looks like uncertainty is not always confusion about who you are. Sometimes it is the natural result of spending so much of your life adapting to the expectations, emotions, and demands of other people that your own inner voice gradually becomes difficult to hear. As children, many of us learn an invisible lesson long before we understand it. We notice which emotions receive comfort, which opinions create conflict, and which parts of ourselves earn praise. Without realizing it, we begin shaping our personalities around safety rather than authenticity, believing that acceptance depends on becoming the version of ourselves that causes the least disappointment. This process is rarely a conscious choice. It is often an act of emotional survival. Your mind learns to protect relationships, avoid rejection, and preserve connection, even if doing so requires setting aside pieces of your own identity. What feels like losing yourself may have once been your brain's most intelligent way of protecting you. Over time, however, living according to these hidden rules can become exhausting. You may reach goals that once seemed important, only to feel strangely empty afterwards. You may laugh at conversations that never truly reflect your thoughts, agree with opinions that leave you unsettled, or wake each morning feeling as though you are performing a role that no longer fits. These experiences are not proof that you are failing at life. They may be quiet signs that your deeper self has been waiting patiently beneath years of adaptation. The human brain is remarkably adaptable. Throughout life, it constantly updates its understanding of who you are based on your experiences, relationships, and environment. This flexibility helps you survive, but it also means your identity can become shaped by fear just as easily as by genuine desire. Psychologists sometimes describe the self as something that develops through repeated experiences rather than appearing fully formed. Each meaningful interaction becomes another piece of evidence your brain stores. If expressing your needs repeatedly led to criticism, your nervous system may begin treating silence as safer than honesty, even long after the original threat has disappeared. This process involves areas of the brain responsible for emotion, memory, and decision-making working together. Under chronic stress, the brain naturally shifts its focus toward avoiding danger instead of exploring authenticity. Protecting yourself becomes more important than discovering yourself, even if the danger is only the possibility of disappointment or rejection. Working memory and executive functions also play an important role. These mental systems help you organize thoughts, make decisions, and prioritize your own goals. When they are overwhelmed by constant emotional monitoring or people-pleasing, even simple questions like, "What do I actually want?" can feel surprisingly difficult to answer. For someone living with anxiety, the mind often rehearses countless possible outcomes before every decision. Rather than asking what feels right, it begins asking what will upset the fewest people. Over time, this habit becomes so automatic that your genuine preferences grow quieter beneath endless calculations about everyone else's reactions. People with AD can experience a different but equally confusing struggle. Rapidly shifting attention, emotional intensity, and years of misunderstanding may leave them wondering whether their changing interests reflect curiosity or a lack of identity. What others call inconsistency may actually be a brain constantly searching for stimulation while trying to meet expectations it finds exhausting. Depression can blur identity in another way. It often reduces motivation, pleasure, and emotional clarity, making activities that once felt meaningful seem strangely distant. Someone may conclude they have lost themselves forever, when in reality, their emotional landscape has become covered by the heavy fog of psychological exhaustion. Imagine standing in front of a wardrobe filled with clothes chosen by other people. Every outfit fits well enough to wear, yet none feels completely yours. After years of dressing that way, even imagining what you would choose for yourself becomes difficult. This is how many people experience their identity. It is not absent, it has simply been hidden beneath layers of adaptation. Perhaps you have agreed to a career because it seemed practical, laughed at jokes that made you uncomfortable, or stayed in friendships where you constantly edited your personality. These moments may appear small on their own, yet together, they quietly teach the brain that belonging depends on becoming someone else. The encouraging truth is that your authentic self rarely disappears. It often survives in subtle moments. The music that unexpectedly moves you, the conversations where time seems to disappear, the childlike curiosity you occasionally feel before self-doubt interrupts, or the brief sense of peace that appears when no one is watching. These quiet experiences are gentle reminders that beneath years of adaptation, your true self has been waiting all along. Long before people lose touch with themselves, they often lose touch with what feels emotionally safe. Identity is not only shaped by the choices you make, but by the environments that quietly teach your nervous system which parts of you deserve to be seen and which parts should remain hidden. One hidden cause is chronic emotional invalidation. If your feelings were repeatedly dismissed with phrases like, "You're too sensitive," or "You're making a big deal out of nothing," your brain may have learned to question its own emotional signals. Eventually, doubting yourself begins to feel more familiar than trusting yourself. Another cause is growing up around unpredictable relationships. When love, approval, or affection depended on someone else's mood, your attention naturally shifted outward. Instead of asking, "How do I feel?" you learn to ask, "How do they feel?" This habit can continue well into adulthood, making your own needs seem strangely invisible. Perfectionism creates another quiet trap. Many people believe becoming flawless will finally earn them peace. Yet perfection often becomes another mask. Every success raises the standard higher, leaving little room to discover who you are beyond what you achieve. Rest begins to feel undeserved, and self-worth becomes tied to constant performance. Traumatic experiences can also interrupt the natural development of identity. When the brain experiences overwhelming stress, survival becomes its highest priority. Curiosity, creativity, and self-expression often move into the background, while vigilance takes their place. The mind is not choosing fear because it is weak. It is choosing survival because it once had to. Even constant comparison can slowly reshape your sense of self. Social media, workplaces, families, and friendship circles often provide endless opportunities to measure your life against someone else's. Without noticing, you may begin collecting pieces of other people's identities, hoping they will finally feel complete together, only to discover they never truly fit. The emotional consequences rarely arrive all at once. They appear quietly. You hesitate before sharing an opinion. You apologize for taking up space. You feel guilty after saying no, even when you desperately needed rest. You begin wondering why every decision feels heavier than it should. Some people describe this as feeling emotionally numb. Others experience constant anxiety, loneliness, or an exhausting sense of emptiness they cannot explain. The painful part is that these feelings often create even more self-criticism. Instead of asking what happened to them, they begin asking what is wrong with them. Imagine carrying a backpack that grows slightly heavier every single day. At first, you barely notice the extra weight. Eventually, climbing even a small hill becomes exhausting. Yet because you have carried it for so long, you assume everyone else must be carrying the same burden. You stop questioning the weight and start questioning your own strength. Ordinary moments begin to carry unexpected emotional meaning. An unanswered text can feel like evidence that you are unimportant. An empty chair at dinner can remind you how disconnected you feel from yourself. Even looking into a mirror may sometimes feel unfamiliar, as though you recognize your face but struggle to recognize the person living behind it. Perhaps the deepest consequence is grief for a life you never fully lived. Not because you made the wrong choices intentionally, but because so many of those choices were made by a version of you trying desperately to stay accepted, protected, or loved. There is a quiet sadness in wondering who you might have become if safety had never required hiding pieces of yourself. Yet even this sadness carries an important message. Grief often appears where something valuable still exists. The ache you feel is not proof that your true self is gone. It may simply be the part of you that has patiently remained alive, gently reminding you that beneath the layers of fear, adaptation, and expectation, there is still someone worth rediscovering. Many people believe shame is what finally forces change. If they criticize themselves enough, push harder, or refuse to accept anything less than perfection, they assume they will eventually become the person they were meant to be. Yet psychology repeatedly shows a different pattern. Shame may create urgency, but it rarely creates lasting growth. When you attack yourself for feeling lost, your nervous system often interprets that criticism as another threat. Instead of becoming clearer, your mind becomes busier. Instead of feeling motivated, you may become defensive, emotionally exhausted, or disconnected from your own needs. The very voice meant to improve you can end up drowning out the quieter voice trying to guide you home. This is one reason harsh self-judgment so often keeps people stuck. Every mistake becomes evidence that they are failing. Every moment of uncertainty becomes proof they cannot be trusted. Eventually, they stop exploring who they truly are, because exploration itself begins to feel dangerous. It feels safer to remain inside familiar patterns than risk discovering something others may not accept. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a stress response rather than a character flaw. When the nervous system senses emotional danger, it naturally prioritizes protection over curiosity. You may avoid difficult conversations, ignore your own desires, or continue living according to expectations simply because your brain believes predictability is safer than authenticity. This helps explain why pressure from other people often has the opposite effect. Being told who you should become can make your mind resist even positive advice. That resistance is not always stubbornness. Sometimes it is your psychological need for autonomy, quietly protecting your ability to make choices that genuinely belong to you. The same is true of constant comparison. Seeing someone who appears confident, successful, or completely authentic can make you believe you are falling behind. Yet you are comparing your private struggles with another person's public identity. Every life contains invisible compromises, hidden fears, and moments of uncertainty that rarely appear on the surface. Healing also becomes more difficult when we think in extremes. Many people believe they must either completely know themselves or be completely lost. They imagine identity as something fixed, waiting to be discovered once and for all. In reality, your authentic self is not a destination you arrive at. It is an ongoing relationship with your own thoughts, values, emotions, and experiences. There will be seasons when you feel deeply connected to yourself, and seasons when life pulls your attention elsewhere. Stress, grief, major transitions, parenthood, illness, or loss can temporarily make your inner voice quieter. This does not mean you have abandoned yourself. It means you are human, adapting to changing circumstances while trying to remain emotionally safe. Perhaps the most compassionate perspective is this. The versions of yourself that now feel embarrassing were not mistakes. They were attempts to survive with the understanding you had at the time. The people pleaser was trying to preserve connection. The perfectionist was trying to avoid rejection. The quiet observer was trying to stay safe. Even the parts of yourself you now wish to outgrow once believed they were protecting you. When you begin seeing these older versions with understanding instead of contempt, something remarkable happens. Your inner world becomes less like a courtroom and more like a conversation. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" you begin asking, "What was this part of me trying to protect?" That single shift replaces judgment with curiosity, and curiosity is often where genuine self-discovery quietly begins. You do not have to become a completely different person to become your true self. More often, healing is the quiet process of removing what was never truly yours to carry. Layer by layer, the fear, expectations, and survival strategies begin to loosen, allowing something authentic to gently emerge. If you have spent years feeling disconnected from yourself, it is understandable if you expect dramatic change. Yet the nervous system rarely heals through force. It responds more readily to consistency, safety, and experiences that gently teach the brain it no longer has to stay on constant alert. This is why the smallest moments can be surprisingly powerful. Pausing before automatically saying yes. Noticing how your body feels during a conversation. Choosing music because you enjoy it rather than because it is popular. These moments may seem insignificant, but each one quietly tells your brain, your experience matters too. Instead of asking yourself huge questions like, who am I really? Try asking gentler ones. What brings me a sense of calm? When do I feel most present? Which conversations leave me feeling lighter instead of drained? Small questions are often easier for an overwhelmed mind to answer honestly. Healing also involves allowing yourself to change. Many people feel guilty when their interests, beliefs, or relationships evolve, as though becoming different means they were pretending before. In reality, growth often means updating your understanding of yourself as new experiences shape your life. Authenticity is not staying the same forever. It is allowing your inner life to remain honest. There will be days when old habits return. You may catch yourself people-pleasing, hiding your opinions, or seeking approval before making a decision. That does not erase your progress. The brain naturally returns to familiar pathways under stress. Each time you notice the pattern with kindness instead of criticism, you create another opportunity for a healthier response. Supporting your nervous system is just as important as changing your thoughts. Adequate sleep, regular meals, gentle movement, quiet moments without constant stimulation, and meaningful human connection all help create the internal conditions where self-awareness becomes easier. A regulated nervous system is often better able to hear the quiet voice that stress once buried. You do not need to uncover your entire identity in a single breakthrough. You only need enough courage to take one honest step at a time, one truthful conversation, one healthy boundary, one decision that reflects your values instead of your fears. Small acts of authenticity accumulate, and over time they begin to feel less like effort and more like home. If this journey feels especially difficult because of anxiety, depression, trauma, or another mental health challenge, remember that seeking support is not a sign that you have failed. A trusted friend or a qualified mental health professional can help you explore your experiences with compassion, offering a safe space to reconnect with parts of yourself that may have felt hidden for a long time. Perhaps the most comforting truth is that your true self has never been demanding perfection from you. It has simply been waiting for enough safety to be heard. You are not rebuilding a stranger. You are slowly reconnecting with someone who has been quietly beside you through every season of your life, patiently waiting for the moment you finally turn inward with kindness. As the sun begins to rise, the landscape does not become something new. It simply reveals what was always there, hidden beneath the darkness. In much the same way, becoming your true self is rarely about creating a different person. It is about gently allowing the light to reach the parts of you that have been waiting in silence. There will still be uncertain days. There will be moments when old fears return, when familiar masks feel easier to wear, and when you question whether you are making progress at all. But every time you choose honesty over performance, curiosity over shame, and self-compassion over self-criticism, you take another quiet step toward the life that truly belongs to you. Your story was never defined by the roles you played to survive. It was shaped by the quiet resilience that carried you through them. The child who adapted, the teenager who searched for acceptance, and the adult still learning to listen inward are not separate people. They are chapters of the same human being, each doing the best they could with what they understood. So if you have spent years wondering why you feel disconnected, let this be your reminder. You are not late, you are not failing, and you are certainly not alone. The path back to yourself is not measured by dramatic breakthroughs, but by small moments of truth that slowly become a way of living. One day, you may look back and realize the person you were searching for was never somewhere beyond the next achievement, relationship, or version of yourself. They were quietly present in every honest feeling you allowed yourself to acknowledge, every boundary you finally respected, and every gentle choice that reflected your values instead of your fears. Perhaps becoming your true self is not about finding a missing piece at all. Perhaps it is about remembering that beneath every expectation, every disappointment, and every attempt to become enough for someone else, there has always been a whole person deserving of understanding, acceptance, and care. If this video helped you see yourself with a little more compassion, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your story may become the reassurance that someone else needs today. If you found comfort or clarity here, consider sharing this video with someone who has been quietly searching for themselves. And subscribe if you'd like to continue exploring the psychology of what it means to be human. Until next time, be gentle with your mind. The person you are becoming is not rushing toward perfection. They are simply finding their way home, one quiet, honest step at a time.